with that, let's go to Mike Coots. And Mike, let me give you a little bit of background. Mike is suffering in Hawaii right now.
We really feel sorry for him.
And Mike has a great story. He's a professional photographer, but he's a shark ambassador, and he has taken it upon himself to go out there to preach about shark conservation. And what makes that really interesting is the fact that Mike lost a leg to a shark. So Mike is a shark attack survivor, come surfer, come professional photographer, and now an incredible shark ambassador. And in fact, I'll tell him, this is a shameless plug. We got Mike donated one of his images that he took, he named Tiger with a capital T. So it's like a tiger shark coming straight at you. And we turned that into a t-shirt, which is available on the Fins Attached website. So Mike, thank you for being a part of this this evening, and I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Alex. And aloha, guys. Aloha, everybody. Thanks for that beautiful intro. And it's an absolute honor to be virtually shoulder to shoulder with my heroes. Everybody that I'm participating with has been a hero for quite a while. So I'm very honored and stoked. And I guess I'll start with a little bit of my backstory. As you guys might know, I live in Hawaii. I grew up on the island of Kauai. And from a young, early age, I loved everything about the ocean. It gravitated me. And I started riding waves from as long as I can remember. And all the way into high school, every day was a chance to go to the beach. I was there. And my friends and I, we just absolutely loved riding waves. And as we got a little bit older, we started thinking about our career paths. And I got really into competitive boogie boarding, and a lot of my friends as well. And my older friends are making a good living doing it. This is a time when there was a bit of a sport and you had contests and sponsorships, and that's what I wanted to do. And I joined a bodyboarding team called the Kauai Classic. And that's all I dreamt, slept, eat, everything was about riding waves. And graduated high school, this was in 1997. And I remember that summer we had the worst flat spell of waves that I could ever remember. It felt like months and months of dead flat. And summer rolled into fall and we didn't get any swells. And come late October, we would get these faxes once a week sent with a surf forecast. And we saw finally some surf coming. So we knew a week out that the swells are going to be here. I think our excitement level was a 10 out of 10. We woke up on the morning of October 28th. My coach had this old vehicle. It was a 4x4 Scout. And I remember getting up at like 5:30 or so, and we're like, hey, today's the day where, finally got some good surf. And we loaded up in his truck, and we got our breakfast and everything, headed to the beach. And there's a great surf spot on the west side of Kauai. It's on a military base, a Navy missile facility. It's called Majors Bay, and it's a sandbar. It's the most beautiful white sand beach, and it kind of goes into this reef system. And right at the edge where the topography underwater changes from sand to reef, there's a good surf spot. It's a nice right-hand point break, and it's in about 30 feet of water, so maybe a couple hundred yards offshore. And we pulled up that morning to Majors Bay, and I remember the car doors opening up. There was about 5 of us in the vehicle, and the doors opened up, and this was at sunrise, maybe 7 in the morning, and it smelled like the worst smell I've ever smelled. This dead, fishy, pungent, disgusting smell. And it probably should have been a cue that maybe we should kind of analyze things before heading out into the water. But because we had weeks and weeks and months of dead flatness, there was nothing stopping us from getting in the water. And we just all jumped in and got out the back, and this beautiful set came in right off the bat. And 3 of my other teammates, they caught the first 3 waves of the set. And I could see them on the inside, and there was this beautiful last wave coming in, and I had been sitting there, and I was just sort of sitting motionless. And there was a guy that I'd never surfed with before, and he was right next to me. And he kind of gave me this look like he wanted to go for the wave. And in surfing, we don't want to share waves. So you kind of want to signal your dominance that this is my wave. And I remember doing my first paddle stroke that, I want to catch this wave. And as my fingertips brushed the water surface, a large tiger shark came up vertically. I didn't see a fin splashing or anything like that. There's no audio cues or no Jaws music in the background queuing up. Total blindsided attack. And I just felt an immense amount of pressure. Like everybody here was sitting on my legs. Didn't feel any pain, just crazy amount of pressure. And I looked down into my chest, and I was sort of in this sort of sitting position, and it was a large tiger shark. I remember the nose being very square and right into my chest. And I tried to get my legs out with my right hand, and that didn't work. And it started swaying me out of the water back and forth, like a slow motion swaying. And it stopped swaying, its mouth, I remember kind of opening up again, I think maybe to get a better bite. And with my left hand, I socked it a couple times in the head. It let go. I got back on my board. And I looked at my index finger, my right hand, and it was split open like a potato. Like I could see the bone and blood and everything. And I was like, oh boy, I'm hurt. And I looked at the surfer next to me. He was white as a ghost. His eyes were like bugging out of his head. He didn't say a word. And I yelled, shark, go in. And he took off to the beach. And I started paddling behind him. And as I'm paddling, when you're paddling in a prone position and you don't see what's behind you, and my right leg started doing this like crazy uncontrollable spasm. And I thought, okay, this is it. The shark's finishing me off. And I looked over my shoulder thinking I was going to see just a set of jaws and my life ending right there. And it wasn't that. It was my leg completely severed off. You couldn't have taken a machete and done a better job. And there's blood squirting out the middle every time my heart beat. And I think my heart dropped a few. I was like, oh boy, this is, I'm in deep trouble. And luckily a little wave came right there. I rode it up to the beach. I tried standing up, but without a foot, you can't stand up. I sort of rolled back into the water. My friends saw what was happening, my teammates, and they kind of rushed to my aid. My friend Kyle, quick thinking, dragged me further up the sand, took my leash on my board and made a tourniquet right there, which I later found saved my life. He said a prayer for me on the beach. And I remember just kind of feeling like I was going to die, but not scared, and just this real calm feeling. And I opened my eyes and there was a pickup truck there. They threw me in the back of a truck. We hauled ass to the emergency room. It was like a 10-minute drive or so. And I started going into shock in the back of the truck. I was just laying in the bed of this truck with the tailgate down next to some surfboards. And I didn't want to look at the injury. And I just wanted to play like this with the board bag next to me to kind of keep my mind off things. And I remember getting really hot, really cold, to cycle over and over, trying to rip off my wetsuit top, like so hot. And then the next minute, taking that board bag, trying to use it as a blanket because I'm so cold. And we pulled up to the ER doors. A doctor ran right up to me, put his arm on my shoulder. I passed out. I woke up in the hospital, sort of explaining, I got attacked by a tiger shark. Its nose is this wide, so and so and so and so, and passed out again. And woke up the next day in our main hospital with my family around me, and it was a bit of a somber moment. I specifically just remember everybody really quiet, and the doctor looking at my mother, and my mother saying, I'll tell him. And Mike, you lost your leg, and I was like, yeah, I saw it come off. I know, and everybody was like, oh, he's okay with it. And I was just honestly really happy to be alive. And I spent about a week or so in the hospital, and it was, I don't know, I just felt like I was on borrowed time from then on. And there was no animosity. I didn't feel like I'm missing out on anything because I was losing a limb. I think I was just really focused on how to get back in the water and how to get back to a bit of normalcy. And I spent maybe that next year learning how to use a prosthetic. I had really bad to no health insurance. And I would almost be asked every single day, aren't you afraid to go back in the water? And the honest truth was that fear wasn't there. What I did fear was my prosthetic breaking. It seemed like it would break at the worst possible times, whether I was going on an overseas trip. The day I landed, my prosthetic would break. Whether it was finals in college, my prosthetic would break. It had an uncanny timing to want to break down at the world's worst possible moment. And that was my biggest fear at that point in my life. Made me, I think, really being comfortable with being uncomfortable, just knowing that any second, everything, because my prosthetic is my transportation, it's my everything. And without it, I'm pretty much stuck on the couch. So I really felt like every step, everything was just an absolute gift. And during this time, I fell in love with photography. I went to an art school in Santa Barbara. I spent 4 years studying how to shoot people. I really wanted to be a fashion photographer and shoot for Roxy, the swimwear company, shoot girls in bikinis. And during this time, I was just really curious, I guess, why I got attacked. And I started going to the library a lot, reading shark attack files. There's a database here in Hawaii. I was like, well, is it a moon thing? Was it the murky water that day, that stinky smell, the time of year? And just, I think the more I learned, the more questions I had. None of those questions were answered, excuse me. And I sure as heck knew a lot about what sharks were doing to humans, but I had no idea what humans were doing to sharks. And it wasn't until in June of 2009, I got a phone call from a shark attack survivor in Florida. Her name is Debbie Solomon. And she's like, hey, Mike, hope you don't mind me just randomly calling you, but I'm a shark attack survivor myself. And we're getting some other shark attack survivors around the world to go to the US Congress and try to close some loopholes on a shark bill. And I was like, shark conservation, what is that? Like, sharks attack people. And I had no clue. And she's like, don't worry, don't worry. There's a film on YouTube called Shark Water by Rob Stewart. Watch it and all your questions will be answered. That night I watched the film, and as much as, and I mentioned this earlier, as much as that shark attack was a pivotal point in my life, watching Shark Water was equally so. I was blown away by the film. And there was that number that came on the screen, I think 70 million sharks a year killed for their fins. And that was the statistic that came on. And I thought that was a typo. I watched it like 3 times. I remember my girlfriend at the time, I'm like, that can't be. And it really stuck with me. And I finished that film going, well, I'm in a unique situation and I love the ocean, and this stuff all makes total sense to me. I now feel a responsibility to do something. And I went to Washington, and we got that bill passed. It was the Shark Conservation Act of 2009. Shortly thereafter, there was a bill in our state Senate here in Hawaii, basically making the possession of shark fins illegal like contraband, like drugs, with stiff fines. And I was able to talk to our local council members, the Department of Land and Natural Resources. We got that bill passed. It was the first of its kind in the country. Soon California and other states piggybacked on it, which is really cool. I was fortunate to fly to New York and speak at the United Nations about marine protected areas and shark sanctuaries. And I started learning a lot about sharks and hanging out with scientists and biologists. And I was like, this is the most fascinating stuff ever. And it wasn't until a few years later that I actually got to do my very first shark dive. It was at Guadalupe Island, and it was the very first morning in that cage that my life again was changed forever. Seeing a shark underwater, and just the beauty of a great white. And I just had brought an old GoPro. I didn't even think, I was shooting photos all day, every day. And I didn't even think to bring a proper camera. And to this day, I'm kind of kicking myself for that. But after that trip, until right now, all I can think about is the next time I can go shark diving, and the next time I can be underwater with sharks. And it's become just completely everything that my life, everything revolves around sharks to me, and being underwater with sharks. And I've found that I just found joy in to be able to share these stories about sharks. And I've started, like I mentioned, I studied portraiture and shooting people, and I started going on these dive trips, and I started bringing my portraiture lenses underwater and sort of looking at these sharks like they would be people, and trying to find sort of a human trait in them, whether it's a smirk, a smile. Always like in photography, when you shoot people, you're always like focusing on the nearest eye. Underwater, my little squares on the shark's nearest eye, and I'm almost in that mindset like I'm shooting a close friend. And when I go back and when I edit these photos at home in my office, I'm looking for some sort of tangible, something that I can maybe see myself, see a friend, see a relative in the shark. And then from there, I put on social media and try to tell stories of why we need sharks, and why sharks play such an important role in our marine ecosystem. And I've just really found value in that. And I feel a deep sense of responsibility, I guess, isn't the irony of being a shark attack survivor and having a talent as a photographer, but also it's just incredibly dang fun. Like, to me, it's the funnest thing in the world. And I come home after these shark dive trips and I'm shooting a family portrait on the beach, and there's nothing like being underwater with a big great white or any type of shark at all. And I don't know, I really think we're at a critical juncture here on planet Earth, here in our oceans. And like, as you mentioned earlier, Dr. Sylvia Earle, like, no blue, no green. I think that really, really holds true. We need sharks to exist as humans. We need to coexist with them, and in order to coexist, they need to exist. And extinction is forever. And I think these next years and these next few years are just so critical as a juncture for the health and wealth of our oceans. And that's basically my story. As soon as this COVID stuff is over, I'm just itching to get back underwater with sharks, and to just join my fellow divers around the world.
Wow, Mike, what an amazing story. I can't imagine going through what you went through. It's just truly a remarkable story, and talk about overcoming fears and meeting your fears. It's just a remarkable story. Thank you for sharing that. And we will get you back in the water. You're supposed to be coming to Cedros with us November, December on a great white shark trip with us. So we'll get you on the boat, and we'll be with you there shoulder to shoulder. So appreciate you sharing that story. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Alex.